What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Um, guess this would be like part 3, I guess, of version 2. It's been a while. Been really busy working overtime, getting my dad to the doctors and all that. Um, I ended up getting a couple extra weeks off of work. I got a new manager, and he's new to being a manager. So when he submitted my time off, I was really only supposed to get 1 week, but he put in for 3. And since he's approved it, he can't undo it. And so it was kind of up to me whether or not I want to take the time or not. So coming up in July here, I'm going to be getting 3 weeks off of work. And since I work weekends, that actually means that I'm going to get a total of like 4 weeks off. So I'm going to go get my son here in a few days, and I'll be spending the month of July with him. So this project has already been going pretty slow, and it probably will slow up even more. So I wanted to get something going. I wanted to get something to be able to get some progress and to be able to get a video out. So anyways, what I'm going to attempt to do is glue these case halves together. Hopefully I'll remember to put the crank in it when I do it. I'm going to be using the Ultra Black. It's oil resistant. No, it's probably not the greatest, but I've never had any issues with it. Another thing, video idea that I have that I want to do, I've made a case separator splitter. Once you glue these things together, they're pretty hard to get apart. It's not like knocking the top off of a... Well, we got a cat coming in, and my area is a mess. She's going to end up pushing that door back open. Anyways, yeah, my area is a mess here. But anyways, like I said, I'm going to do a video on my case splitter that I made. Make it a lot easier to get the case halves apart. That cat's probably ended up walking back through. I don't mind her being in here. I just don't want the door open. But anyhow, so this is what we're doing. In an effort to get this project rolling, I'm going to go ahead and put it together. These are the original bearings that I had in the case whenever I did the first version of this. And I didn't remove the seal on this side. Another thing, this isn't really correct and I should do something about it, but like I said, I just want to get this project moving forward. But with the crank in it and it bolted together, there's some, it's really weird. It's a little bit of a squeaking, and I think it's the bearing on this, on the clutch side. I think it's this bearing, and I mean, there's no play in it or anything, and it seems fine just sitting here. But with the crank in it, every once in a while, there's a little bit of a squeaking. And so if and when this thing fires up, if it makes any kind of weird noises, that'll be why. I'm hoping that it won't, and we're just going to see how it goes. But like I said, this project has been kind of stalling out, and at this point, I'm not going to go the correct route of knocking out this seal and bearing to replace it in hopes to remedy that issue. I'm just going to put it together because I want to move this project forward. So that's the game plan, and we're going to see where that gets us, where we end up. Being that this is a test motor and this is all basically for educational purposes for me, to get experience building and to learn, I'm kind of pushing the limits on stuff like that, like I did with the first version, taking it to the ragged edge of correctness and see what I can and can't get away with, what will and won't work, where I have problems and where I don't. Obviously if you have issues moving it by hand and it's squeaking and making noises by hand at 200 revelations a second, you're probably going to have even more issues. But we're going to see how it goes. Something else I've noticed on most of my videos, in order to try to explain what I've got going on and what I'm doing, I have a tendency to reiterate to death. I will say the same thing over and over again in multiple different ways throughout videos, and I'm trying to be conscious of that. I say that now because I'm trying to be conscious of it, to be aware of it, to stop doing it. So if I say something one time, that should be enough. You guys are intelligent individuals, and you get it. You know what I'm saying, so I don't need to say it 5 freaking times over and over again. But I did want to make note of that squeak. The seal, I'm hoping will be good as well. I'm hoping I don't have any issues with that bearing or that seal. And I'm hoping that this thing will fire up and work a little bit better than the first version. Being my second go around, I'm hoping to make improvements. I'm new to this stuff, so I'm still learning. But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and get it together at this point and see what it does. And like I said, just to make some headway, if nothing else. I'm ready to get some progress on this thing. It's been really busy for me lately, and when I do have some free time for myself, I've been pretty much just sleeping. Been so tired. I don't know what I got going on, but man, I've been tired lately. So I figured I would take the day to day. I got some quiet time here, and just wanted to take a minute to get something done on this thing. I was messing with this the other day, just kind of cleaning it up. I took them to the sink with some soap and cleaned all the dust. I've been, I had to patch that hole from where I busted through the case, and this crank is got the thicker lobes, the 17 millimeter lobes, and so I did actually have some clearance issues with the JB weld in this case. So I had to clean it up, do some sanding and stuff. So I washed it just to get the dust out. I cleaned the cylinder a little bit. I did some porting to the transfer area, and the piston. I cleaned on them a little bit, but I do need to go through and do a final clean on those just to make sure I got all the metal chunks and particles, not so much chunks, but the dust out, but a little bit of piddling on these things here and there over the last few weeks, but nothing major. So I feel good enough about the clearance with the JB weld and the crank to go ahead and put it together. Like I said, I might be having some bearing issues, but I'm hoping that that's going to work itself out. These are really cheap bearings. These aren't the stock bearings that came with the case. These were just some cheap bearings offline. I got a 10-pack for $10 or whatever it was. Until I get better at building, until I become more proficient and more knowledgeable and start, building more realistic builds that are supposed to be more reliable or supposed to be more performance-driven builds, I'm not going to be spending money on individual parts like bearings. I was wanting to do some testing with some of those ceramic. I found some of those cheap ceramic bearings, and I noticed Leonard over there doing some stuff with those ceramic bearings. So I'm interested to see how that turns out. I don't know which ones he got. If it was I'm assuming it's the better ones. He just about everything you see on his channel is pretty top of the line. So I was personally gonna do some playing with the cheaper stuff just to see, what that's about and how they're constructed. It almost looked like there was some plastic in there, like plastic races or something, maybe. But I could be wrong about that. I'm talking about the ones I was looking at, the cheaper ones. I just glanced at them briefly, but it did almost look like they had plastic races in them. I'm sure the high dollar ones are probably built correctly and built to last, but yeah, I buy cheap stuff. This cylinder kit was $10 or whatever it is. These bearings were cheap. This sealant is cheap. You guys hear that frog? I wonder if he's going to keep it up. There's some kind of weird tree frog hanging out outside my window here, and he'll do that every once in a while. I'm going to have to go check him out. I'm sure if he's doing it here in another week or so when my son's around, we'll be investigating that. Nope, there he goes again. That dude is loud, man. So anyways, yeah, away from the personal stuff and back to the build here. I feel like if this thing is going to run, the squeakiness of these bearings isn't going to, obviously that's not going to keep it from running. It'd definitely mess with the longevity of the motor. It may wear out prematurely. But I only hope that it would, if it lasts long enough that the cheap bearing, the squeaky bearing, is the demise of this version, then I think I'm doing good. The last one didn't last long enough to wear anything out before it had grenaded itself, So if the bearing going out is the demise of V2 here, then I think that I will be making progress. That'll mean that this thing's running longer than 15 minutes. I was quite surprised how well version 1 actually ran. It ran very well, to my surprise. Now, granted, it didn't last too long. It only made it 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, before the cylinder rattled loose and it grenaded itself. But in that amount of time, I rode it down to the end of the road. I rode it a few hundred yards and rode it down to the end of the road and back, and ran inside and got my phone, got a little video of it running. So I was stoked. The fact that it fired up and ran, I chalked that up as a win. To me, that was a win. So if this one will run long enough to wear out a bearing that's already worn out, I'll consider that another win, and version 3 will be even better. So at this point, we're just getting it together and making progress and having a reason to jump on here and say hello. So here is our legitimate 38 millimeter stroke crank. It's got the FM50 rod. It's got the 17 millimeter thick webs. It's got the solid pin. Op was asking about a link for this thing. It was an Amazon crank. When you search 38 millimeter crank on Amazon, it pops up as this one. It's the only ad that I saw that is a 38 millimeter stroke crank. But if you saw the other videos, I explained in there to where I bought not all at once, but over a period of about a month, I bought 4 of them. And out of those 4, this is the only one I kept. I sent all the other ones back because none of them were 38 millimeter stroke cranks except for this one. This was the only one. So if you go on Amazon and you search 38 millimeter stroke crank, it'll pop up with an ad, and that's where I got this from. So if you want to, try to get you one, that's where you can go. Whether or not you'll actually get one is up to the seller, I guess. I would like to get a couple more of these, but it's not easy to get them, apparently. And I'm going to end up making some more attempts. I'm going to buy a couple more and see what I end up getting. But I'm not holding my breath. See if I can do this without making a mess. I've pre-lubricated my my bearings in there and in here. This is another video I want to do. Got some cool stuff going on with some new tools and some different video ideas. I just really haven't had the time or energy to do anything about it, to make any videos. So here we go. Seal's already on this side. All right. These Allen head bolts can get pretty expensive. If you go to the hardware store and try to buy some of these long enough for the case, they can be a few dollars a piece. What I did is I wish I had some that I haven't cut down, but I bought these number 3. It's got the big Phillips. Let's see if I can set this down. It's the number 3 Phillips, the big one. And the head on them was pretty big. It was too big to fit into the case. So what I did, and I bought them a little bit longer than what they needed to be too, but I chucked them in the drill and put my grinder on and ran them, spinning them in the drill, put them on the grinder, and cut the head down to where they were small enough to use. Like I said, I'm going cheap on everything. So with this test motor, I'm doing cheap hardware, cheap parts, cheap everything. But that's what I'm using for these longer ones here. I got a set of these Allens very cheap. There was none long enough in the set, but when I get this put together, I'll show you guys. But I got a set of these on Amazon for it was like $8, I think, and got a whole bunch of them, different sizes and everything. And I was hoping that they were going to be long enough. I didn't really check my measurements, but I knew I needed all different sizes, so I went ahead and ordered the set. But there was none long enough for the longer ones that I need here. See if we can get this started. There we go. But there's some in that set long enough for here. All different sizes. It was like 5 millimeter all the way up to like 30 millimeter, I think, maybe 25 millimeter. Definitely very useful though. So I got a lot of hardware at a good price, basically. But for the other stuff like this, cutting my own down just to save $1. Like I said, not wanting to spend a whole lot of money on stuff that I don't know is going to work. This is all testing, trial and error, education, putting Frankenstein together, you know. This is intended for a cheap Chinese chainsaw. This is not intended for a motorized bike case. So I did prove with the first version that it worked, that it, you know, and it was to my fault that it didn't work well. Poor design on my behalf. But like I said, I'm testing the limits to see what I can and can't get away with, and learning as I go. So building a database of information, experience, something to build off of. What can I do? What can I do? What can I get away with? What can I get away with? And then doing it as inexpensively as possible too. That's part of it. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. I had mentioned in a different video, it was back when I rebuilt the original YD100 that I had. I didn't have it on video, but I mentioned it in video that I knocked the shims out of the crank. On the inside of the crank, you've got those shims, and I basically just heated the case and it fell right out. I was thinking that it was going to be an extraction process, but it actually came out very easy once I heated the case. But anyways, I did that because I didn't want to have to use gaskets. I didn't want to have to put paper gaskets on the case. You know, it takes a lot of time to cut those gaskets out. They're really, I mean, they're pretty expensive when you're talking about $10 for a gasket set. You know, so, and in my mind, you've got a better chance of a paper gasket leaking. So I just really like being able to glue stuff together. And in another video, I'm gonna do my case splitter, my case spreader. I'm gonna make a video about that, because like when you glue, like I mentioned earlier, when you glue a cylinder on, it's pretty easy to tap it with like a rubber mallet. You know, you take a rubber mallet and you tap on it, and you got enough leverage, you can really pull it off. You can separate it. It's not an issue. But with a set of case halves, when you glue those things together, man, it's really hard to get them apart by hand. You're sitting there pulling on them, you know, like this, beating on stuff like this with a rubber mallet, having the chance of breaking that off. So it's pretty difficult to get them separated once you glue them together. And so I'm sitting there looking at it, trying to figure out how am I going to separate this thing? How am I going to get it apart? And I had this cool idea about a spreader. And it actually worked, and it worked very well. And it's a very simple design, very easy to come up with, to make, and to use. So I'm going to do a video on that. But yeah, I feel good that I'm getting this thing glued together. This is one step closer to being able to fire this thing back up again. And probably what I'm going to do is, I say probably because I'm done saying what I'm going to do, because when I do that, it never works out. But what I'm thinking about doing is putting this on the Del Mar. I made a video a while back about that blue bike that I had bought, that I wanted to build and never got around to it. So then I made a video saying that I was starting that build and I was working on the rear tire. And then I got away from that to do, I think, this and version 1. So I've really gotten away from that project too. So I want to get back on that project and get something going on that. I got it sitting here. I got it sitting right there. So I just haven't gotten around to doing anything with it. So hopefully when I get this put together, in between the time of finishing this and being able to put it on something, hopefully I'll do some more work on that and get it ready to put a motor on, and then I can kind of test that out along with this all at the same time, kill two birds with one stone. And then even whether or not this motor works out or not, I've got another motor or two that I need to do something with. and then I'll have a platform to do that without taking. I say my good bike. I don't now that I don't ride every day. The Phoenix, my good bike, was my primary mode of transportation when I lived in Gainesville for quite some time. Um, I'm not going to say a year because it wasn't quite that long, but for several months, many months, that was my primary mode of transportation. And now that I don't depend on it to get around anymore, I really don't ride it as much, which sucks, you know. But I am eventually gonna start dedicating more time to this. I love this hobby. I love riding. I love building. I love everything about this hobby. And you know, like I said, I've just moved back in here to help my parents out. I never really said what was going on with that, but my dad recently became paralyzed. He had to get some spinal cord surgery, and it left him paralyzed. So, with me getting a new job and you know my current situation, helping my family out, and my new job and everything, new schedule, it's just really it's made me kind of step back. It slowed everything down in my life and made me step back and reprioritize and having to make me reacclimate to life basically. But things are starting to normalize and starting to come together and become easier. And I will definitely one day start spending more time with this because I really do enjoy it. And I think it's even cooler, not just this hobby, but being able to get on here and talk with you guys and share, you know, experiences and knowledge and learn from you guys and to have a group of excuse me, friends and family all over the world. You know, because this motorized bike club, whether you guys, you know, admit it or not, we're a family, man. We all enjoy the same things. We all enjoy the fact that we can get on here and talk to people all over the world. And, you know, it's really cool. And I used to crack on in my younger years. I used to crack on YouTube so bad. I would make fun of YouTube and this and that. But as I get older and start pulling my head out of my, you know what, man, I dig it. I do. I dig it. So there was somebody commenting on the last video about how this piston isn't going to last because I took away its strength and integrity. If you're watching this, I really didn't cut into this thing that much, honestly. Like I just cleaned up the defects in the windows, like that big old chunk right there. You know, this one had one too, and it's still kind of there. It's not completely gone. You know, so I don't know that that's the case. I don't think that the integrity of this piston has been compromised in the least. But I do feel like that it's opened it up enough to where it'll perform better. But like I said, this isn't so much about performance as it is workability. Will it function, and how well will it function, and how well can I make it function, and how well am I improving from this build to the last build to the next build? How am I improving? How am I getting better? Where can I improve? You know, all of those things. So something that I did notice though, and like I said before, I had to mess with the JB Weld in this case. This crank does not have as much clearance as what I'm used to seeing with these thicker webs. You wouldn't think 2 millimeters would be that much, but it really is tighter clearance here compared to what I'm used to on the thinner cranks. Apparently, back in the day, that used to be kind of more common, I guess, the bigger webbed cranks. I've only been involved in this for a couple years now, at best, but I would like to get some more of these. Apparently, they used to be a lot more common these 38 millimeter stroke cranks. But like I said, go on Amazon, search 38 millimeter stroke crank, and you'll find the ad. It shows in red lettering. It shows the dimension of like the rod and the width of the crank. You know, from here to here. It's got dimension lines with red lettering telling you the dimensions of the crank and the rod. And it specifically says 38 millimeter stroke crank. But yeah, I bought 4 of them to get one legitimate 38 millimeter. So I'm not hearing that squeaking now. Yeah, so I don't know what that was. It sounded to me like it was coming from this side. Oh, there it goes. Yep. So I know that's a bad idea, and anybody watching is going to be like, you idiot. That's not. My camera's doing some weird stuff. But yeah, I wanted to get it together. I want to get it to this point to where I can fire it up, to where I can test my new cylinder bolt system and just see what my improvements, what my changes have done. Have the changes that I've made improved on it or not? You know, I'm using cheap stuff. It could just be the fact that these are just cheap bearings. The clearances on them aren't right. They weren't doing that in the first version of this motor. When I fired it up, there was no noises like that. When I was building it, there was no noises like that. There could have potentially been a small piece when this piston broke off. Although by the time this happened, it was no longer running. By the time this happened, it was no longer running. So I don't think any metal got down in there. But I mean, it's hard to say what happened. But it is definitely making a noise. I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. We're just going to kind of see what it does. I'm going to get it together, and if it's squealing like crazy, we'll say, hey, we kind of anticipated that. But it is what it is. It's a cheap motor and testing a theory. So it is what it is. But yeah, so probably what I'm going to do now, I'm going to let this sit, and you know, I've already kind of torqued it down probably more than what I was supposed to, but I'm going to let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to go and torque everything down and clean the case up a little bit, get some of this overspray, if you will, off of there. And then I'll go from there, and then I'll pop back in. We'll put the seals on and start putting this thing back together. Glue the cylinder down and check our squish and clearances and all that. Anticipating that it will be different from last time, seeing as how last time I used a 40 millimeter stroke crank and I had to stack a bunch of gaskets onto my spacer, my Yoda head. Tell me that don't look like Yoda. So I'm hoping that this time around, I'm hoping that I can just glue the cylinder down with the spacer, glue on both sides, and be done with it. I'm hoping that I don't need to stack any gaskets, but I might. I probably will, seeing as how I had, I think, 3 gaskets on the last one. So now that I'm at 38 instead of 40, I'll probably have like 1 gasket instead of 3, but I'll be fine with that. I'm interested to see where I'm at with my my free porting issues, and see what we're working with. So that's what we'll do on the next video. Like I said, I'm going to let this set, go back and torque everything down, and we'll check in on the next one. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Appreciate you being here. Think anything or want to say anything about how this ain't going to work or that ain't going to work, by all means. And for those of you that have been hanging out and enjoying this, man, I appreciate you guys, and it's a lot of fun. This is awesome. So we'll see you on the next one. Ivy, what are you doing, kitty? What are you doing, babies? All right, guys. Deuces. All right, so I was sitting here torquing this thing down. It's been several minutes later since I ended that video, but I'm gonna throw this at the end of it because I forgot I said I was gonna show you guys this set. So these are M6 by 1.0 thread pitch Allen heads, and like I said, these things get pretty expensive when you go to the hardware store. You can spend upwards to $3 a piece for one of these things. So yeah, M6 to 30 millimeters is as high as it goes. The smallest ones, I think, are 5s. Might be these 8s. Yeah, 8s. So I've got M6 by 8, M6 by 12, M6 by 16, M6 by 20, and M6 by 30. And so it was like 100 pieces, I'm wanting to say, something like that. 14 pieces in each bag. I got 5 bags. So what is that, 70? 5, 10, 15, 20, 70 of them. And it was like $8. So, but yeah, these 30 millimeter were long enough to go into here. They weren't long enough for these. I mean, it'll catch, but it's only a couple threads. It really, it's not long enough. But you definitely get a good assortment of different sizes. You get plenty of them. And for the price, it's definitely worth it. So that was Amazon. But yeah, if you guys are looking for an assortment of some Allens, it'd be a good place to go. That hardware store gets expensive. So anyways, yeah, I got that, and then I got a 5 millimeter set too. That's what the yeah, and these are the same sizes, same sizes, just 5 millimeter. So, but I got these for the inserts, the thread inserts that I got. So, yeah, I don't think this is all of them, but I've got some thread inserts that go from 8 mil to 6 mil and 8 mil to 5 mil. I think these are the 6s, these are the 5s. And then my other plan on that, and I've got several other builds that I want to do, and these just so happen to line up as far as the stock pattern on the cylinder to the stock pattern on the case. It worked out to where I could just do an insert. But I'm not going to do the JB weld anymore, fill in the holes. So my plan is for any more of these builds that I'm going to do, because I like the Frankenstein builds. But what I'm going to do for that is going to be, and I've got 6 mil and 8 mil depending on which case I use, because I do have a case that takes 6 mil on the cylinder studs. But these are aluminum. These are aluminum bolts. So where it works out to where the insert doesn't match the pattern, what I'm going to do is fill the hole with an aluminum bolt, cut it off flush, and then drill and tap into the case that way. After version 1 grenading itself with the JB weld in the holes, I'm no longer going to do JB weld. So that's another method that I've come up with for getting cylinders attached that don't match this pattern. Fill it with aluminum, and cut it flush, drill and tap. It'll be way stronger that way and easier to drill and tap. If you were to fill these holes with steel, you've got different types of alloy, so drilling into it, it would want to make the drill bit walk. It's just not ideal using different types of metal in there. So this was, I believe, eBay. For the aluminum bolts was eBay, and then these sets were Amazon. So if you guys are looking for hardware, check it out. I'm going to eventually get these links together, but anyways, they're easy to find. So just wanted to throw this on there. I forgot I mentioned that I was gonna show that stuff. So that's what I've got. This thing is it's been torqued. These number 3 Phillips aren't that bad as long as you've got a number 3 Phillips screwdriver. If you're trying to use a regular Phillips, regular number 2 Phillips on those number 3s, they're going to strip out, and it doesn't work very well. But with a number 3, you can actually get pretty good amount of torque on there. I don't have any issues using them. So yeah. And actually, I just thought about it looking at these. I could always cut these down and use them. You know, they're aluminum, but that ain't going to matter. It'd probably be less likely to strip the case out actually using aluminum bolts. You'd strip that bolt. I could tell by how light these things are. These things are really light. I can almost guarantee that these would strip before the case would. I believe that's a harder aluminum. But anyways, yep. Appreciate it. See you guys next time.